Hello and welcome to Tippcast again this Wednesday, a slight bit earlier today at 10:30. I'm joined by Shane Brophy of the Nina Guardian and William Maher, who, well, we're going to be previewing the Tipperary Miners, so you've kind of done it all there, both captaining and managing Tip to an All-Ireland title. So, Willie, it's going to be Galway this weekend. Tipperary needs something this year, don't we?
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I think the buzz we all got. I was down at the Munster final, and it was fantastic as regards to win it in dramatic fashion. But yeah, we really needed the title, and we really need another title. So yeah, looking forward to the weekend.
Yeah, and do you think there's any concern that since Tipperary last played, and it was that huge occasion against Clare down in Limerick, winning on penalties, that is it a good thing that Tipperary have had time to come down off that, or is it the flip side that Galway have played two games in the meantime and they could be that bit sharper?
Yeah, I don't know, Shane. Like I think with 17 and with the age gone back even a year younger than 18, I think that could have a big difference as regards form and trends are very difficult to assess. So I think we I suppose we will see on Saturday. Galway coming in cold as regards into those last two matches as well, having not played anything. So look, there's pros and cons to it, but I think yeah, we'll know Saturday.
Yeah, Shane, what's your thoughts on this now? Again, it's the great imponderable. Nobody really knows. Are Tip going to be lacking sharpness, or have Tip time to come off what is a huge high for those young lads?
Yeah. I was talking to James Woodlock about it on Monday, and like he's, I wouldn't say he's concerned, but I think he's supposed to put the positive spin in it. It worked. It's probably worked out well. Like, because if we judge on what Clare happened to Clare against Galway, that was 10 days after that Munster final. They were so flat that day. So you think if they were flat that day, Tip were probably needed a good 2 weeks to get that game out of their system. And look, the last 2 weeks they probably really ratcheted things up again. And like you're tuning in for this week, so maybe. Look, you'd say 39 days, I think, is the count between that Munster final and throw in next Sunday, which is an awful lot. And look, Galway played twice in the meantime. They were very impressive against Clare, but there's an asterisk maybe over that because I don't think Clare were firing. And then against Laois, like they were put to the pin of their collar, they only won by 3 points. So I think there's elements in Galway that they don't really know how good they are as well. But the teams have played each other twice in challenge matches. I know challenge matches are, you can't read too much into them, but they did play the hour after Tipperary played Clare in Thurles 6 or 7 weeks ago, and I know I was there, but I didn't watch any of it. It was in such a comatose after what was happening in the senior match. But by all accounts, it was a very high standard game of hurling. Like so, like I'd be expecting. I think both teams would probably know the other team's strengths. Like so, I wouldn't call it a cagey affair. I think this will be it'll be a good game, and I don't think there'll be any excuse if Tip don't come out and perform well at the weekend. Because like, I think they underperformed slightly in the Munster final. I think they got spooked by how Clare were so compact in defence, particularly in the first half. Our forwards got no room. Like Clare brought back their midfielders, they brought back their half forward line, and when they turned it over, like they counter attacked, working the ball through the lines and ball into space into forwards. Like so, I think to be fully fired and primed now for this on Sunday.
Yeah, Willie, like if you were to go through the performances so far, Tipperary beat Waterford the first day, 122 to 23 points. Then beat Clare, these are in the group stages, 213 to 13. Hammered Waterford the next day, 327 to 15 points. And, Tom Delaney went to town that day. Then Munster final, 122 to 25. Like, what's your overall impression of this team's arc since the start of the season, where they're at now?
Yeah, look, it's been very positive as regards. And we win a Munster title, I think, is a good day for Tipperary Miners. I think we probably saw all I suppose aspects of our play against Clare. Looked like we were going to win it. Looked like we were going to lose it. Looked like we were going to lose it in extra time, and the lads came back and did it again. So I think they worked the ball very well, which was very encouraging as regards. Looked very well coached. When the pressure came on, didn't played the percentage ball, and as Shane said, they are Clare set up very defensively, I think Hegarty was just sitting on the edge of the D all the time, and Tipperary to be very, very careful with the ball, and ultimately they were in the end. I suppose the quality of the bench really showed in the Munster final. I think 3 or 4 of the subs that did come on made massive impacts on the game. So that's again very, very encouraging. And sometimes again, just having been through, I suppose a minor campaign as a manager, you're finding out your team as you go, because this is not like, I suppose, senior where you have form lines and you have everything else of players. Like you're literally, the team changes from the very first round, as you mentioned there, against Waterford in the round robin, to invariably trying to get to an All-Ireland. The team could be completely different, but you mightn't get that far. So I suppose that's the thing. So, but like I think, look, James Woodlock will know a lot about his players. That 39-day break from the Munster final will allow them to assess, any injuries that were there, assess form, assess everything else, and put the best team out there. I was actually in Thurles the day after the hour after the Clare match. I found out it was going on, and I just waited around, and it was really, really high standard. Obviously, the stadium in pristine condition helped the young hurlers on the day, but it looked really, really good. So I suppose this is a big match, with, I suppose, Nyland being the main man for Galway, and much touted, much talked about, and he's definitely a star for the future. But just it'll be interesting to see how he gets on the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, your brother-in-law Mark Kearns is part of the setup with Galway there. Can you give us any insights in the camp? Can you sort of betray any information of Fergal Healy's setup there, with Joe Canning part of it too?
Look, I suppose I talked to Mark a bit, and again, county boundaries and everything else, there is loyalty to your own, so he's not too inclined to tell me what's happening. But at the same time, I'd say a very professional setup, very, very, very clued into, I suppose, managing modern players and young fellas who are, like the 17-year-old now is a different 17-year-old than it was maybe 10 years ago. So I think, trying to really get the best out of their players, and again, try to play that modern game, that they're not found out on the big day if a team plays a sweep or a team does something out of the ordinary, that they're very, very comfortable in that chaos. And I suppose Mark has done great work with Clarenbridge, winning the national Féile 2 years ago, I think it was, with Nyland being the main man there as well. So a lot of talent, a lot of pedigree in the Galway setup, as well as, I suppose, players that are coming through.
Yeah, Shane, we do hear about Aaron Nyland an awful lot. Like he's got another year underage next year, which is scary enough when you think about it. Scored 28 points in the last 2 games. I'm pretty sure there's place balls in there too now. But Tipperary, do we need to be looking at a man marker here?
I don't know. I don't think they'll go down that route. I think I'd like to think that we did a job on Joe Canning in 2006 when he was the star man in that All Ireland final. So I think if you get focused on one player, there'll be other players that'll beat you. Like, there's no doubt he's a talent. Like, but I think wherever he plays, I think our half-back line is pretty solid. I wouldn't be shaking up our half-back line if it's going to be Sam O'Farrell, Young Sheehan and Jack O'Connell. I wouldn't be shaking that line up if it means having to put a man marker on Evan Island. I think they'll trust our own ability. Look, they've seen Island in those challenge matches to know what he's about. But look, Tip has quiet. He was so quiet against Clare. Like, Clare weren't going to let him run amok that day. Like, you think Tom Delaney probably will have a big game. Damien Corbett will probably have a big game. Like, and look, guys coming off the bench like Sam Rowan, Darren McCarthy, I thought was very, very good coming off the bench. Look, there could be guys that have played their way into form over the last few weeks, and that we'll see in the starting team. You think, God, that young lad doesn't deserve to be dropped after what he did in Munster. But like, 5 weeks is an awful long time. Like, it's the impact those subs made shows that they're just as good as the guys that are starting. So I'm sure the last 3 weeks of training will be dog for jerseys.
Yeah, some of the other players that I keep hearing about, that Rory, obviously Nyland, but Rory Burke apparently fine forward. A couple of dual players, Killian Trayers, I think it's Trayers, and Jack Lonergan. And obviously we have that stacked management team like we were talking about earlier. But Willie, just in terms of managing a minor team, and of course they were a year old, the age grade was a year older when you were managing the Tip minors to the All-Ireland. But, in terms of trying to get consistency out of young players, I mean, from one game to the next, are you not really sure, how they'll perform on a day? Even if they've got lots of talent, they're very young, and, you can't expect consistency.
No, absolutely. But I think you're just trying to, as I said, find your best team as you go, and like guys that that again conditions change, and I suppose when we were there as regards, it started obviously in or January, February, we were getting guys ready, but that's a very different type of player you're looking for Croke Park down the line. So it's yeah, it's a challenge. It's and you don't know what the opposition are going to bring then either. You can't control that. So like you come with. I reference we played Waterford inside Thurles in the semi-final, which was the big match to get to a Munster final in the All Ireland series. But I think Stephen Bennett hit the ball out by the post at the end of the first half, wide ball. We went and I think John McGrath went up the field, got a goal. There was a 6-point swing in a very, very small space. We really kicked on from it at the time. I think Ty Gallagher got a goal from Killadangan straight after half time. So there was 9 points on that. So it's very difficult to I suppose control that. But at the same time, you're just trying to ride the wave. When you get into position to score, you need to score at minor level because it could sap the life out of you. And we'll hope on the weekend that Tipperary get the scores that they need at the right time, and I suppose not allow someone like Nyland or Burke or these big name Galway players at the moment really kick into form. You're trying to stop momentum, and really Tipperary have a really good half back line as Shane mentioned there already. I think it's just important that we stay positive, we stay compact, and we don't go away from what we're trying to do, which is obviously, as James Woodlock I think alluded to after the Munster final, play the ball short, play the ball like I suppose in a modern way that we just stick to the process. And that sounds very corporate-y, but at the same time, I think it's just important for young lads just to keep ramming home that message. And you could see James Woodlock on the sideline the last day just roaring into the players, but it was I'd say it was very focused instruction as regards just keep playing the ball short, and we will get the scores.
So if you're to look at the last day, obviously Tom Delaney had a brilliant game against Waterford, a little bit quieter the last day. The last day out, Paddy McCormick was the focal point in terms of like being the man that you'd hit the puck outs to, and he was winning them, and obviously he was doing lots of good stuff. People will accuse me of Burris Lee bias bringing him up, but you'd imagine that Galway are going to look to try and tie him down, so he may have to find other ways to get into the game, will he?
Definitely. I think it's not. I don't think it's Burris Lee bias on Paddy McCormick. He was so good the last day. It was Tipperary bias because I was so impressed with him. He did everything. He won puckouts. He hit the free at the end. He scored from play left and right. He scored one from the sideline and the open side in Limerick. He was just so impressive. Like when every time he went near the ball, he won it, and that was the biggest compliment I could play to him. So he's a real look. He on that performance, and that was probably the second time I've seen him live. On that performance, he'd be just really excited about what he could do. Big, athletic, got injured as well during the game, and just he did it all. And I think that's the real, I suppose, exciting piece for both Bursley people and Tipperary people looking in. Galway will definitely have to tie him down because he was just, as I said, he was so impressive. But like even the last day, Tom Delaney, was quiet, but we've seen what he can do in the championship, and I think that's another exciting piece that this could be another opportunity for him to show his wares and I suppose show everyone the talented player, no doubt that he is.
Yeah, Paul Tierney says our underage structure looks very promising. Watching Tip beat Galway under 15 in the current Michael Hogan final. Jimmy Ryan, one to watch, brilliant defender from Holy Cross. Shane, who else are you expecting to step up for the Tip Miners in this match?
Okay, you mentioned Paddy McCormick. Like he's very, very good. I thought our midfield was a little quiet against Clare. So I think Adam Dale, particularly Kieran Foley, another one. I thought he had a great campaign up to the Munster final. I think he'll have another big game. Of course, Owen Horgan and goals was excellent as well. But I just think from 1 to 24, and look, there's going to be a lot of guys who probably won't make the 24 match day panel. They're going to be so disappointed. Like there's that much depth of talent. And look, I think it was highlighted 2 weeks ago when the Celtic Challenge under 17 team, the second team of Tip, effectively devoured Galway in the All Ireland final. Like, so it just shows that at this crop of 16 and 17-year-olds in Tip are very, very good. There's probably very little between maybe number 1 to number 50. 50, I think 56 players is what James Woodlock said it was on between both panels. Like that's impressive. And look, we can do that every year back to 15, 16, 17. I think the challenge is what happens, win or lose on Sunday. The challenge is what happens to this group of players next year when we can only put a panel of 34, 35 together for under 20 going forward. What happens to the guys that don't make the grade after that? I think that's as important that in terms of planning for Tipperary as winning the game is for this weekend as well.
Yeah, Willie, what do you think needs to happen in terms of ensuring that there's a bridge for players to get from minor and under 20 up to senior level? Because not all lads are ready at 19 to then just hop straight into the senior setup. Sometimes they go to clubs where, S&C and the training and all that is perfect. But some players, and, this is something that I'm sure you'll see in Kilkenny, because they have a lot of players on the under 20s that are on minors and under 20s that are both with junior clubs and intermediate clubs. Now, some of them are doing great work, but there's sometimes a little bit of a gap in terms of like preparation level that might get them ready to be senior county players down the line. So what do you think should be done to bridge the gap?
Well, I think definitely you have to, I suppose, take control of these players and make sure that they're in some system, be it strength and conditioning, be it nutrition, be it just, I suppose, basic hurling training. If you're from, a smaller club that is not playing at the higher level, you could be lost very, very easy. So I think the it has to form around, I suppose, that link between clubs, schools, counties, as regards that it's all feeding into the one dynamic of keeping them in the system and not letting them go. I think there's a huge risk here with like 36 guys going forward, maybe to under 20s next year. Like again, probably half of that won't make the under 20 panel. So you could be losing 40 guys to and if they're not in a strong club, their development is severely hindered. I just even take up the point as Shane was saying there. Like it's so encouraging as regards to see Tipperary winning the I suppose the Celtic Challenge with that amount of players, as regards having a really competitive team against Galway in All-Ireland semi-final. That shows like we have 50 players of really, really high standard, which is what you want. But that has to feed back through all the ages, from 14 to 18, 19 or 20 years of age. You have to have all these players because Tipperary, like, is a huge county, huge culture of hurling. We have players. There's absolutely no doubt about that. But they have to be, I suppose, given the tools to make the step up. And that's the point I think you're asking there. How can we get them all through? But they have to be in a system. And again, you look at the conditioning, and we've all seen that photograph from Limerick as regards on the bench 1 to 5 after the Munster final. Like, that's 10 years of work. That's not this year, last year, their strength and conditioning guy. That's 10 years of work and putting them in a system. And Limerick have such control. They don't have all the answers. They don't have the perfect situation, but they have it all based, I suppose, around that UL model of Dara Droog and Carbra now leading the S&C program right back from 14 to senior, and that's what it takes.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you about, because you're involved with Bennett's Bridge, about what Kilkenny are doing, but it's a perfect opportunity to mention the Bridge tournament that's coming up on Sunday. So Bennett's Bridge, Ballygunner, Kilmallock, Thurles Sarsfields. You must be pretty excited about that, because that promises to be a pretty good day there, Willie.
Can't wait. Like us all, I love going to hurling matches. I love seeing top class hurling, and that's something we wanted to do. Just I suppose a small point. Johnny McGovern, we're playing for a cup for Johnny. Johnny passed away in February. Johnny is the record number of county championships in Kilkenny at 11. I think TJ has 10, so he's fast approaching Johnny's record. But a Kilkenny great, a Bennett's Bridge great, and we're just trying to honour him this weekend with the quality of the teams we have. And look, it should be a great day. So if anyone's around the area that popped down, as regards, we're trying to cater for all needs, be it Kilkenny, Waterford, Limerick and Tip.
Yeah, so four games, 10 are in, not bad.
No, it's good. It's good. Look, and 20-minute games and loads of other bits and pieces going on as well. So look, it should be a good day, and we're trying to, I suppose, revitalise the tournament era of the 60s, 70s, and 80s. I remember going to matches with my dad, Kilkenny and around Tip, as regards just looking at tournaments, and that's what we're just trying to do as well. Trying to, I suppose, get back to the clubs. It's on the day of the quarter final, which is a little dampener on our I suppose attendance, or will be, but at the same time we've a lot of tickets pre-sold, so we're looking forward to a great day.
Yeah, Shane, just to talk again about the Tipperary minor team, just adding it up there, 22 different players got game time against Clare in the Munster final because it went to extra time and you're allowed the extra subs. That's got to be huge for James Woodlock in the last couple of weeks, because there's all these players now who could probably feel like, geez, I could play a big part in an All-Ireland semi-final here, and every one of them will be chomping at the bit.
Oh, definitely. As I mentioned, like Sam Rowan came on, he got the goal. Darren McCarthy got 3 points, and he took on the freeze when Damien Corbett went off. I think Jamie Ormond came on, and I think he hit a point, but he also hit 3 wides. But James Woodlock was encouraging. At least he took the shot. The shot was on. Like he wants to see guys taking the shot on, maybe rather than passing on responsibility to somebody else. He doesn't look. You don't want to see the amount of wides we had in the night. But look, if you don't shoot, you don't score. Like, and look, I love that. I like that part of him for James. He's allowing the players to make the calls at the right time. And look, when you're 4 points down and when you're down to 14 men, like the character of that group is incredible. And look, they're playing in the image of their manager, and like who is the man that you'd love to have in your trenches with you in a difficult situation? Only James Woodlock.
Yeah, Shane, I think your audio might have slipped there. I'll drop you out for a second and come back in then. So, Willie, if you're to try and call this one, I mean, I always find it just impossible to call with minor games.
Look, very, very difficult. I think if we can get a performance, if we can show the same level of grit, aggression, resilience in the Munster final, I think, look, we won't be far away from it, and I'll go for a tip win. But like that, you just don't know what's going to come out of Galway. We've all been, I suppose, over the years, there's been a big rivalry between Tip and Galway in All-Ireland semi-finals, All-Ireland finals over the last, I suppose, 20, 25 years, and it'll be no different on the weekend. So, look, I'm going for a tip win, but again, as Shane mentioned there, in the image of James Woodlock and the image of the manager, in the image of our leader, as it was at this group, the guys showed unbelievable, I suppose, resilience the last day. So hopefully they'll show it again the weekend.
Yeah, and even to this day, was it 1996 your minor All Ireland as a player?
Yeah, I played 96, 97, and we won it in 96. So yeah, no, okay. I was fortunate to captain again against Galway, and my brother-in-law Mark Kearns got a goal to draw the match in Croke Park. So yeah, there was a lot of connections and a lot of family stuff over there. But at the same time, yeah, great memories. And look, we all, I suppose, enjoy the minor and enjoy everything else around it, and hopefully it'll be the same the weekend.
Yeah, so I was going to ask, is it one of these things where, you know, it's minor, and to the rest of us looking on, you know, there's minors every year, and, you know, we enjoy it and all that, but for those that are involved, like you involved, do those friendships endure? Are they, like, they're still memorable days when you look back now? So this is a big deal for these young lads.
100%, like and particularly if you win, and that's the other, I suppose, piece. I'd still be friendly with fellas that we would have played with, and it would have been, I suppose, through 14, through 16, through minor with Tip, guys from different ends of the county that you'd never have, I suppose, got to know at all. So yeah, it formed huge bonds and strong bonds as regards, particularly when you do win the title.
Yeah. Okay, so Shane's having a small bit of trouble with his setup there at the moment. We'll have him back on in a minute. Can we talk about the All-Ireland quarterfinals this weekend? Cork are against Galway. Now, where are you at with this Cork team that obviously battered Tipperary? Great win against Waterford before that. Didn't blow me away now in their 11-point win over Antrim, and got 1-2 very late on to sort of blow up the scoreline. So could you call this one?
I think it'll be very difficult. I was up at the Leinster final, and I was unbelievably disappointed with Galway as regards. Just never raised the gallop at all. I know they had 3 or 4 big goal chances, particularly in the first half, and Owen Murphy pulled off a couple of great saves, but they never really got into Kilkenny. Kilkenny had them at arm's length the whole game, and I suppose, very disappointed. There has to be a kick in them, I suppose, and that's my point. There has to be something in this Galway team to say, okay, we didn't show up in Croke Park, that we're going to show up in Thurles on the weekend. On the flip side of that, you look at Cork, and I'm really not convinced they're in Cork. Yes, they beat us very, very convincingly, but any of the other big games, be it the All-Ireland final last year, the league final this year against Waterford, the first round against Cork or against Limerick in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, they were hammered and they were blown away. So the jury is very much out on Cork, albeit again they had a big win over ourselves, but at the same time, I think it's a very, very difficult game to call. Cork do like going to Thurles. They do like the wide open spaces. So again, if they can sort out their defensive issues, I think they need to really get that, you know, that 6-3 solid. But I don't know if that's I don't know if they're there yet in that stage of development. And I don't know. I'll go with Galway, but I barely.
Yeah, do you know what I find odd is that last year they decided to drop Conor Lehane off the entire panel, and now they're building the forward line around him. He was, from what I could see in the Antrim game, he seemed to be playing around centre forward, and everything went through him, and he was their man of the match by a mile. But what does that say when you see a guy being dropped one year and then he's the leader of the pack the next? I find that so strange.
It's very difficult, and you know yourself, within hurling circles, narratives are created around players, and that narrative then becomes truth. And like Conor Lehane, for whatever was seen as a guy to get rid of, or a fall guy, and it was wrong, because he proved then in the club championship how good a hurler he is, and like he's definitely in the top 20 Cork hurlers. There's absolutely no doubt about that. But then again, that narrative was created around him, and he was got rid of. He showed unbelievable character to come back. It is a worry, I think, from a Cork perspective, that narrative was allowed become reality. They got rid of him, and now, as you said there, he's back the main man. So yeah, I suppose a difficult one. Even you look at the All Ireland last year, I think they started the midfield in the second half against Limerick with Damien Cahalane and Owen Cadigan. Like, what they would have given for a Conor Lehane in that situation, even to play around the middle. So like, I don't know where they are in their development. I think, yes, they're getting better. Yes, they seem to have an army of players coming from minors and 20s over the last 4 or 5 years, and you'd imagine that would start to come through now. But at the same time, bar Connolly, who's an outstanding forward, we haven't really seen, I suppose, the best of that crop yet to come.
Yeah, Shane, we're obviously talking Cork-Galway here, but just your thoughts and prediction on the Tipperary-Galway minor match first.
Look, I'm not going to go against Tip anyway. I think Galway are the, I suppose, when it comes to minor hurling, Galway are the number one nearly every year. Like, you think that they nearly get everything right at minor levels. Look, if you're beating Galway, you're going a long way towards winning the championship. So look, I think there's probably a decent chance maybe the All Ireland winners come from this game. Look, I think it's going to be a seriously high quality game. And look, you think on Sunday there's no inter-county hurling on the telly. It's a Sunday match. It's in Limerick. Like, there's no, there 4,500 at the Munster final. There's no reason that Tip hurling people shouldn't be in there on Sunday. Man, at least try and get 7,000-8,000 people in there and have a really good cracking atmosphere. Like, it's look, it's our last chance. I just had the back of the paper this week. And if the minors lose, if the Camogie team lose, and if the ladies football team lose, that's it. That's like that's how grim the year has been. Like, so, hopefully get 2 or 3 of them to win this weekend and drag it on. But like, I think I give the minors every chance. It's like just the way they fought back in that Munster final. Like, you thought they were dead and buried. Like, I'd never rule them out now with James Woodlock over them anyway.
Yeah, so 2016 was the last All-Ireland minor for Tipperary. Galway won the next 4, then Cork won with Galway getting to the final. Is there sort of do you think there's real confidence about Galway at this level? And is it totally, I mean, it is fairly justified, Shane.
It is. Look, they generally get things right. Like, they win 4 minor All-Irelands in a row, and I think that they lost the final either last year or the year before. I think last year to Galway or to Cork, I think. Cork. So, yeah, so like they always have players. I suppose it's Galway's problem is a lot like Tip. What happens from 17 to 20, and then from 17 to adult level. I suppose that Limerick seem to have gotten it right. I think the under 20 grade is the one you have to get right now rather than 17. I think it's been proven. I think over the last decade that if you do well at under 20, under 21, you have a fair chance of doing a lot at senior level. So. And look, I thought we had a very good under 20 campaign this year against Limerick. Like, and look, in that. Lost the final, probably could have played. If you played Limerick again 10 times, I think Tip would have won 3 or 4 of those games just on the night. If Tip had won the toss and the matches in Thurles, they could have swung a Tip's way, like a small thing like that. It probably helped to Limerick's side. And look, they probably just had that extra bit of power and physicality. But look, we always have players at Tip, always have players. It's just about making sure that the transition through the age grades goes as smoothly as possible. Keeping players hungry as well.
Well, then what about the Cork and Galway game? What way are you leaning in that one?
God almighty, there's something about this game that doesn't excite me one little bit. You know what? It's very strange. Like, Galway were so flat against Kilkenny, so poor. Cork, you can't trust them.
Can you trust either team?
No. So I think it's the winner of this has to go on and play Limerick. So like I think I give Galway the benefit of the doubt that there'll be a reaction from them from the Kilkenny game. I don't know, did they get too focused on maybe standing up to Kilkenny's physicality and work rate and intensity that they forgot to go out and hurl. Like, so as we saw in that first half against Kilkenny in Pearse Stadium, where like they scored 117 in 35 minutes, like that's Galway at their best. Like, and look, they're probably going to get an open hurling match against Cork. Cork, flat enough against Antrim. I watched a lot of that game. Would have been interesting now if Cork probably should have been 5 or 6 points down at half time in that first half last weekend. It would have been interesting to see how they would have coped with a bit of pressure on. Like 1 point wasn't a huge way for them to come, deficit for them to come back. They were never going to get too hyped up for that match because they needed to keep something in check for Galway. Jesus, I can't pick him because I can't trust either of them. Maybe Galway slightly, but it's not a confident pick.
Yeah, your old Fitzgibbon Cup teammate at WIT, Henry Shefflin, is over this Galway team, and Willie, he was saying that he just expected Galway to come. This was the post-match press conference. He expected Galway to come. They never did. Like the forwards were very poor outside of Conor Whelan. Do you expect them to come in this game at any stage? And like Keenan Fahy's obviously going to be out suspended as well, so they'll be dipping into the bench. And surely there has to be some sort of a kick in them.
You'd imagine so, yeah, but they seem to really struggle. When Kilkenny started working the ball short, which was obviously very unusual for Kilkenny, or Galway just didn't know what to do, but they were just they couldn't get to the pitch of it. They could not get to the, and you could see Henry after the match. I think there was as much around the handshake as I think his general demeanour of disappointment with the players, and I think that came across in the interview afterwards. You're referring to. So again, there has to be something in Galway. Like as regards, I think Fahy will be a big loss. I genuinely think he was probably their second best forward on the day after Conor Whelan. Conor Whelan was so good, scored 4 points, but Hugh Lawler really got to the pitch of him in the second half and just started disrupting him a little bit as regards knocking the ball away. So that's the worry I'd have for Galway. If somebody on the Cork team, and again we're after discussing it, who's going to be fullback, who's going to be centre back, and how they man those areas. But how, I suppose, Galway will struggle as regards for scores if defensively a team can get close to them. The big question is then, can Cork do that? And as Shane said, I'm completely unconvinced by them as regards they're just, I don't know, they consistently let themselves down on the real big day. This is obviously the biggest day that they'll have for the next while, but at the same time I just think there's more of a kick in Galway. I think, look, I'm going with Galway as Shane said there, but I'm just not convinced by either. And I think you described it very well there, Shane, as regards you're not excited. I'm not either, and it's just maybe hopefully they'll prove us both wrong.
Yeah, I think we're all looking for that. So Willie, within Kilkenny, how are they feeling about their team? Because look, let's call a spade here. Munster is much stronger than Leinster, or certainly even if you look at the winners of the All-Ireland over the last number of years, that's been borne out. But do people within Kilkenny feel that they've got a real team here with a chance of winning an All-Ireland?
I don't know. Again, I probably said this to you before on different podcasts. I'm still the tip man. I'm the outsider, so no one's going to give me any inside information. So it's it's hard to know. Like they're forgetting. They have to win the Leinster final. Yes, beating Galway by 5 points in the Leinster final. But pre to that, like Wexford beat them at home. Galway beat them in Salt Hill. They beat Laois. They beat Dublin to get to a Leinster final, which again I suppose bears out your point there that Munster is a bit stronger than Leinster. Very, very difficult to know. I think look, they seem like a very honest bunch of players. They've got the maximum out of themselves, so it'll be interesting to see how it plays out in a semi-final, depending on who comes through the weekend. Like they're still a good team. They still have 20 very, very good players, and it's a case of just trying to, I suppose, formulate that and put it together. They're probably one of the best goalies in the game with Nicky Quaid and Owen Murphy, and I'd put them on a par. So they always have a chance, and they're not going to concede big, but at the same time, it's hard to know where the scores are going to come from. And you look at that Leinster final, I think TJ hit 5, 6, 7 points in the second half and freeze. They scored 3 points in injury time. They were relatively blunt, and I don't think with a forward line like that, playing like that you have a chance of winning the real big games. And that I suppose that'd be my perspective on it.
Yeah, actually, we didn't ask you about refereeing. I mean, I'm sure you've been frustrated watching in at referees many times over the years, but even the difference between how the Leinster final was refereed and then what John Keenan did the day after, where he let it flow. There were, if we can put it in hurling terms, there were killings the next day between Clare and Limerick. But I mean, it's never going to be perfect because, like, the tackle isn't fully defined. It's kind of everyone out there knows what's acceptable, yet it's not really fully kind of legislated for. So, like, would you rather just a referee who lets it go like John Keenan, even though now with the sightings afterwards, it's almost like he's been told by people above him that he was wrong?
Yeah, I just thought it was chalk and cheese, wasn't it? The Leinster final, Munster final. I think the excitement, even the first play of the Munster final, I was waiting for a free and it didn't come. I was waiting, it didn't come. I was waiting, it didn't come, and it was just brilliant. And the whole game went like that. I think the sightings are, they're just. I think that's terrible. I think it's to be highlighted in such a way, I suppose, on the public forum of the Sunday game, and not even an official channel, that the GA had to act on it. Then I thought that was outrageous. I'd be very aggrieved if I was a Clare supporter going into the weekend without two of probably your better players. So look, there's I don't know what the answer is as regards, like, I'm sure John Keenan got told off probably on the Monday night afterwards that he didn't blow the whistle like the assessor wanted him to, and I think that's the pressure on, and that was the noticeable difference in Croke Park. James Owens was blowing it for everything, and there was frees for tipping and tapping and touching, and again, the game has become unbelievably sanitized, and I think as hurling people, we don't like. I don't want that, and I'm not going to speak for anyone else, but I think the Munster final was brilliant. It was brilliant because John Keenan let it go. The two teams really went at it, and I think to highlight the two incidents that were highlighted from a game the way it was I think was very, very poor form from the GA.
Yeah, Shane.
Yeah. Do you not think that? I think it's on my. If the Keenan Fahy incident hadn't happened on the Saturday night, the GA wouldn't have looked at Rory Hayes and Peter Duggan at all. I think if they just went after Fahy, which he deservedly went after, like a stamping, I think after splitting, stamping is probably the second worst thing you can do on any sporting field. But if they went after him and said no to Rory Hayes and said no to Peter Duggan or no to Seamus Flanagan or whatever incidents happened in the Munster final, do you think? I don't know. I think it's the inconsistency over it.
Yeah.
Why now? Why? That's why I'm convinced that the Keenan Fahy incident hadn't happened on Saturday night, nothing wouldn't have happened to the two Clare lads on the Sunday, or something after that. Once the scene, they had to go after somebody. So they had to be consistent that weekend. But if something might happen this weekend and it'll be completely glossed over once it doesn't happen, once it's not high profile enough.
Yeah, but at the same time, you see incidents are highlighted on TV shows, like whether it's Sky or RT or whoever. And sometimes they are legislated for, Willie, and sometimes they're not. So it's like people say it's a Sunday game and all that kind of stuff, and that's fair enough. Like, but there are situations like even like Austin Gleeson 2017, and he's one of my favorite players to watch. But like he popped off Luke Meade's helmet, and people say that the ref kind of adjudicated on it at the time, so therefore there was no retrospective action. Which to me is, look, they just found a way to ensure that one of the stars of the game could be in a final. So to me, there's a sort of an a la carte treatment, Willie, to how these retrospective bans happen.
I think so, but I think that's why we're all frustrated. That's why I can only imagine the Clare panel for since the Munster final, just trying to prep for this, and then this being highlighted, waiting for the suspension to come, and it did come. So like again, the inconsistency is the piece that just is so annoying as regards for hurling supporters. And again, the way they were ref, but the retrospective banning, and I take Shane's point that Fahy probably they had to do something on that because it was highlighted on the Saturday night, but again, I watched I saw that in real time. I saw the stamp. I said, okay, that's not nice. That will be punished. But I didn't see the two other instances as regards being at the Munster final on the weekend and watching both games back as regards the strike on Seamus Flanagan. Like, I didn't see that in the match at all. Seamus Flanagan, to his credit, stood up and took it. So like it was kind of not law of the jungle, but I felt it. What was on the field should have been left on the field in that instance, because again, there was no one complaining. I thought it was a very, very manly game of hurling. There's a code when you play hurling. There's a code, like, you can't. The days of psychopaths cleaving lads is gone, and might be gone around Boris or in other places, but it's gone in general as regards on the big day. So I think it's fairly self-regulated in that way. But like, again, I'd be very upset now if I was a Clare supporter.
I think Clare mightn't have been as aggrieved if maybe Seamus Flanagan. I thought for the challenge of Shane O'Donnell for a player and a player who's had concussion problems over the last few years, like that was nasty. That was as bad as what he did to William Maher last year, and I don't like. Yeah. What is Seamus Flanagan going to do this again and get? Somebody's going to get seriously hurt. That's my worry. Like, they had an opportunity maybe to even it up a small bit, and they didn't do it. Why did they pick why did they pick the two Clare lads over the one Limerick? And so that's the another part of the inconsistency too. Like, so that big look, I'm not trying to hang players out to dry here. I'm just saying, there was an obvious third serious aggression in that game that needed to be looked at, and it wasn't.
Yeah, I'm sorry, and even the piece on regards a Limerick pundit calling out the instance against Limerick was, I just thought it was.
To be fair, it was like Shane Dowling didn't actually speak during that period of play. You know, just to be fair to him.
I know, absolutely, but like it probably doesn't. Not because it doesn't look right, but it just doesn't. You know, you said it didn't probably sit right with the Clare public then afterwards, and that's and they're looking for someone to blame, and he got in the neck.
But do you think actually the two suspensions? Okay, they might get off, they might not, but this whole thing will actually play into Clare's hands. Like, I'd be worried that 2 weeks after such a mentally, physically draining Munster final, that they could be coming in a little soft into this game at the weekend. But now they have a cause now, and okay, I think Rory Hayes can be replaced. I think Duggan's potentially is going to be the bigger loss because he offers them something different in the full forward line, and the fact that Aaron Shanahan doesn't seem to be in the fray at the moment, he'd probably be a like for like sort of replacement. Like, Mark Rogers is probably not up to speed yet. Maybe Shane Meehan's probably going to start, but he's going to offer you more pace and power than Duggan does. So I think all in all, maybe it might play into Clare's hands a small bit, just to get them to refocus the minds and maybe get that energy level up. That maybe I'd have no doubt that it took them even up to last weekend to get that Munster final out of their system.
I've heard talk that Shane Meehan might be a little bit of a doubt for this, that Tony Kelly should be fine to play, but obviously he came off during extra time. But I mean, if you look at it, and I think Roy Hayes is a brilliant player, but 114 was more or less scored off him in the last couple of games between Desi Hutchinson and Seamus Flanagan. Now, I'm sure at times there was markers swapped around, so maybe not all of it, but I'm just saying a nice bit has been scored off him. Peter Duggan, you know, he's a great target man and what have you, but he wasn't free scoring certainly in the Limerick game, and obviously he was taken off eventually. And I wonder if the 2 years away from inter-county action have counted against him in terms of like physically matching up against some of these Limerick guys. But is there some concern, Willie, that because everyone is almost assuming that, you know, Clare played to such a level against Limerick, that they'll almost certainly win this game, that's one of the biggest concerns here, that complacency would seep in?
Yeah, absolutely, and I think everyone they're in a very kind of unusual position after the Munster final. Everybody praising them for losing, which is kind of the ultimate that you don't want, and that can create softness. And geez, weren't we great? And isn't there? You know, we really shoved it into people this year. There was no one talking about us before the Munster Championship. We got to a final. We pushed Limerick to extra time. No one was, you know, and maybe being happy with that. Like the great teams, I suppose, don't allow that kind of complacency in. It's a disease that they eliminate. But it'll be interesting to see. And saying that, with Brian Lohan at the helm, you'd imagine complacency wouldn't even exist. So I'm thinking, I think to Shane's point, this is after probably giving them a focus as regards or a cause. The two suspensions, whether they get back or not, like is probably irrelevant, because it can become a sideshow if you're focused on that. And I imagine they're not focusing on it, but they're probably focusing on the result and using it to fuel whatever motivation they need for the weekend. I think this is I suppose the opposite of the game before. This is something that should be really excited with with Dara Egan, to see how Dara gets on with Wexford. Their trajectory is very much up. They've essentially played a knockout championship match in Nolan Park that they had to win, and they did it for the first time in, I think, Wexford winning up there in years in the championship. So I think they'll be confident going in. This is a really dangerous game for Clare, because I think like that they can get into the mindset of, weren't we great? But Wexford are coming upwards under them. They mightn't see them, but they're there, and they've a good hurling team. They're becoming more, I suppose, offensive from the last couple of years than what we've grew accustomed to. I think Thurles will suit them because they have a huge amount of pace in their team as well. So this is a fascinating one, and very, very difficult to call. But I think if Clare are not in the right headspace, they could be open to an ambush here.
Yeah, Shane, what way are you going? I mean, if you look at the forwards that Wexford have, anyone would like to have Rory Connor, Lee Chin and Conor MacDonald in their team?
Yeah, no, I'm fascinated by this one because I was at the qualifier match between them at Semple Stadium last year when Clare won narrowly for a finish. But Wexford, I remember the first 50 minutes of that game, Wexford at some stages had no player inside their attacking 45. Like, they were just all over the shop. Now, Dara has sort of given them a bit of structure, like Conor MacDonald. There's always going to be two inside. So look, they're going to they're going to give the Clare full forward line something to think about. So I'd be interested to see how the Wexford team sets up this year compared to last year, and what kind of threats they put on that Clare defence. This one fascinates me. Like I think, like we saw last weekend, the 4 provincial football finalists all lost in the qualifiers. So you have to think that Clare and Galway are very, very vulnerable this weekend. Like if Clare gets through this weekend, they're back on the horse. I still think there's enough in Clare. I think the cause of the suspensions, to say Willie said, whether to come back or not is irrelevant. They have the cause now to get their teeth into. They're going to have a huge travelling support, because they'll feel aggrieved that we're going back to Thurles here again, and Jay's out to get us, and 2 lads suspended, and all this sort of crack. Can Wexford go again, 3 or 4 weeks after a knockout game, do or die game against Kilkenny? They know they can do it. They know they can do it for definite. Rory O'Connor probably hasn't lit it up since the league. Conor McDonald, I suppose we're waiting for O'Connor or Conor McDonald. Like, they've been around a long time, but they've never won a game on their own, really, if you know what I mean. Like, they've never had that game where they come out with 2-6 when play and they light the Republic. Like, it's still, if Leachin doesn't play well, Wexford struggle. Like, so, like, and it's probably still a lot of it's gonna fall on his shoulders. Like, and I think how Clare deal with him. I think if he is a quiet game, Clare win. Like, if he is a strong game, great. I think Wexford have a great chance.
Okay. Final thought on this one, Willie, before we let you go then. I mean, Tony Kelly scored 141 in 6 championship games against Wexford, so he has to be shut down. But like David Fitzgerald, he's having a serious season. There's probably more in Shane O'Donnell. Like, he did a lot of good work in the Munster final, but he didn't score from play. Ian Galvin was very quiet. Like, there probably is a little bit more in them, but they certainly can't just rely on Tony Kelly, who Wexford have really struggled with.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I think it's just I suppose a thing on Wexford very much. Their free taking has let them down the last couple of years as regards, and they're probably a 7 out of 10 free taker. Like, to win big championship matches, you need to be 9, 10 out of 10, and that's just I suppose an aside on if Wexford are to win. I think they'll need to nail everything. Clare, they have a lot of players. They'll expect more from Shane O'Donnell. If Peter Duggan is not playing, they'll need other players up front to step up. But I think they've been unbelievably consistent as regards. David Fitzgerald has been really, really good for Clare. Excellent in the Munster final, and I didn't think he was as good or a hurler as regards. He got 4 from play. He's just really, really athletic and good. I think their half back line is also kind of underrated as regards 3 big, athletic, strong men that stand under the ball and are very, very comfortable on the ball, and allows them to create the platform. They're very good at using the ball as well, which is kind of, I suppose, it's allowing Tony Kelly then to drift into pockets of space. And look, he is, pound for pound, probably the best hurler in hurling at the moment. So yeah, Wexford will have to close him down. Someone like Shane Reck or someone going after him for the day. Shane has a lot of pace. You just need someone to sacrifice themselves. It's something, I suppose, in our defeat against Clare that was I suppose some positive. Seamus Kennedy kept him so quiet by just going with him all day, and although he didn't hit a whole lot of ball, Tony Kelly didn't hit a whole lot of ball either. So maybe that's a worry for us as well, that Tony Kelly didn't hit a ball and they still beat us by 8 points. But it's anyway, they're all the things. Look, it's fascinating. If Clare are right, if Clare's heads are not, I suppose, listening to people afterwards, and I'm sure Brian Lohan won't let that noise in, you'd have to fancy them. But at the same time, Wexford love going to Thurles. Huge Wexford crowd going to Thurles on Sunday as well, and that's a 16 man, if you use the analogy as well. So look, fascinating stuff, and I think Clare, but I wouldn't surprise me with Wexford. So I'm completely sitting on the fence. My apologies.
Okay, well, great stuff. Thanks very much for joining us, Willie, and best of luck with that tournament over the weekend with Benedict.
Thanks, Shane.
Okay, so that was William Maher there. I suppose, Shane, if we're to take it on a little bit and talk about other things to do with Tipperary, Drum winning the league final on Sunday, that's a nice little boost for them. Maybe Clonoulty weren't at full strength. I know there's players across the board who are probably away trying to get a few holidays in now before the championship starts up. But no harm from Drum's point of view to win this.
No, like, look, I suppose Leagues and Tipperary are, I say, they're nobody takes them too seriously. I think over the next few years they will become important, but like, there'll always be clubs that see a league as okay, as a way to build, and maybe after having a few disappointing years, and Drum and Inch are one of them. I know they got to a county semi-final as recently as 2020, but like they were well beat by Killidangy. You always knew they were a little bit short, so they needed to start rebuilding under Brian Boyle and Paul Collins. And look, they had a county minor A championship win 2 years ago, so like, there's talent there. So look, anything that builds a bit of momentum into championship is very, very important. I think a club like Drum needed it. And look, they won without Johnny Ryan, they won without David Collins. By all accounts, Seamus Cannon is looking like this eager guy that's been just let out of the shed after winter. After he just had his winter and spring destroyed with injury. Like so, look, Drum and Inch I think they've locked more in the first round of the mid championship, and then as I said to you, texted on Sunday night, they're in the group with Thurles, Sarsfields, and Borrisoleigh and Tipperary in the county. Like that's a great, particularly if Drum's form holds. You think they'll be coming into a bit of optimism, a bit of momentum. Like that group looks tasty now. Like you're thinking Thurles, Borrisoleigh, and Drum. You'd want to be winning your divisional championship and having the backup in your back pocket, because there's no guarantee. You couldn't confidently say one of those three is definitely going to come out of that group, and that's not disrespecting Temple-Derry, who were very, very good Oreen champions, and they will. The three favourite teams will get nothing soft from them when they meet them in the county championship.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll talk more about the club in the coming weeks. The Camogie team for Tipperary are playing Wexford this weekend. It's pretty much losing or out.
Yeah, it is. It's win or bust for Tip. But Tip lose, they're out of the championship before they play their final match against Cork. Like so,
that's quite dispiriting.
Yeah. Like it's they've 2 draws and a defeat from 3 games. I suppose in Camogie you get 3 points for a win. So when you draw a match, you're dropping 2 points as well. Like you're really being penalised for not winning games. Like so, look, they haven't been great in the championship, even going back to the Munster Championship. I don't know, their form is really, really concerning. Like they don't seem to have the energy levels of other teams, for whatever reason. Like it's I know they're missing quality players from last year. Some girls that have dropped off the panel because they're gone in J1s. Like just but look, I'd be encouraged, like the likes of William Maher and Julianne Burke coming out the last 2 weeks and saying, "Look, we're not giving in here." It shows you that the spirit within the camp is still very strong. They're all pulling together. They're pulling with management. It's just for whatever reason, it's just not clicking on the field. But that's not to say that if they can go down to Enniscorthy on Saturday and win. Look, it's in their own hands to qualify, although you have to go to Cork in the last round. But look, maybe Cork mightn't be at full strength either, because they will have qualified for a semi-final. But then if Cork are going straight to a semi-final, they'll probably put out a strong team, because they'll probably have a 3 or 4 week wait to that semi. So like they're probably going to be as strong as they're going to be. So look, Tip have got to take one game at a time, go down to Wexford, get a win, stay in the championship. But it's going to be difficult. This Wexford team has been building, I suppose, they've from the high of that great team of 10 years ago who were brilliant. Like they fell back an awful long way, but I suppose their help of Orla Tavalla coming back up and winning that club title, they seem to have the tide seems to be rising again. And look, it's I would have said at the start of the championship, on paper this was Tipperary's easiest game on the schedule to try and win a game, but look, combination between Wexford winning Division 2 and in the league, and Tip struggling in terms of championship, it's nearly a 50-50 game now at this stage.
Yeah, and then look, we'd like to be more positive about some of the teams, but it's every team has been kind of struggling in Tip this year. The minors being the real exception, but I suppose the under-20s obviously were very good this year. But the Tip ladies footballers beaten well by Mayo. I think it was 10 points, 116-6 last weekend. But they're missing a huge amount of players, Shane, aren't they?
Yeah, no, I was listening to Peter Creedon on local radio there on Monday, and he was just going through the players they don't have. Okay, Aisling Maloney injured, Aisling McCarthy, Orla Dwyer in Australia, Roisin Howard playing ladies football or playing camogie, the 2 Kennedy sisters, Anna Rose and Caitlin, injured. That's you can't survive without that. And look, there's no disrespect to the girls that are there, but like they're 5 or 6 of your best players from the team that won the All-Ireland Intermediate 3 years ago. Like so, Peter Creedon he's been honest, and I don't think he's been defeatist, as he's saying that the Mayo game and the Dublin game, they're not inconsequential, but the big game for Tipperary is the Cavan game on Saturday or Sunday week, because if they win that, they keep their senior status for next year, and then hopefully you have Aisling Maloney back You have the Kennedy sisters back. You have 17 or 8. Like, they're playing an awful lot of 17 and 18-year-olds this year, and like, they're going to get massive experience in this campaign. Like, look, they lost by 10 points to Mayo, but they had some great goal chances they didn't take. Like, and that's a Mayo team that's getting to an All-Ireland semi-finals nearly every year. Like, they're very, very strong. Like, but look, that's not to say, and I don't even count the two Aussie Rules girls. But I think there's a big problem coming for ladies football down the road, is that none of the best players, the best players in the country, are probably going to end up going to Australia. And now that the Aussie Rules ladies season starts in August, which means you have to be gone back to Australia in June for pre-season, it means you can't play inter-county essentially. So it's not, I think, Donica Boyle had a report that with 14 players have signed with AFL clubs now for next year. You think 14 is not a large number, but when you 14 of the best players in the country, and now Vicky Wall is going, there's probably going to be another chunk of me players going, like, and that's, the girls are entitled to go do what they want. It's a professional game, and they're going to experience professional. And good luck to them. But from a selfish point of view, I know what you think, it's going to diminish the product of ladies football going forward if the best players we're producing underage level are not there to be playing at senior level and building on the growth of ladies football over the last 10 years.
Yeah, it's a very difficult one to manage, because it must be such an attractive lifestyle for some of these girls when they're invited out. Same with the guys, obviously, in the years before that. But and you'd see it, like, I mean, if you follow some of them online, you can see that the lifestyle that they have, it genuinely looks like a brilliant experience. So I wonder in the future, might even the Ladies Associations be looking at maybe tilting the schedule so that, you know, retaining those players so that they can then go to the AFL or women's AFL after that. And I mean, but you don't want to be doing that. You don't want to be playing second fiddle to something the other side of the world. But like, it's a difficult one for them.
I think that's a conversation the Ladies Football Association is only going to have. Do they decide our inter-county season is going to run from January to May, and we know we'll have these girls essentially to ourselves? We can call on the best, and then and then maybe you play your club season when those girls are gone to Australia. Maybe they have to do it that way, because look, I would never, even same with Colin Reardon, I would never say that it's not a good idea for players to go and experience a professional sport. Like, I'm not saying that Orla Dwyer and Ashley McCarthy shouldn't be doing it, or they should have stayed at home to be playing for Tipperary. I would never say that, but I would think for the development of the game, if our best young players are being cherry picked every year to go and play for Australia, what does that do to the quality of the ladies football game as a whole going forward, when maybe the best players that could be there aren't there, and it could be even better.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's it for today's Tippcast. Don't forget you can pick up a copy of the Nina Guardian, and we'll be chatting again soon, Shane. Best of luck getting your car serviced up there in Limerick.
Sure, mate, stay here. Get here early for the match on Sunday. So.
Right, you are. Chat then.
Cheers.